So if you have any siblings, you know that fighting with them is inevitable. Growing up, I had an older brother named Jackson who was always better than me. He was stronger than me, smarter than me, and beat me in every video game we played. In 2008, we got this fighting game called Super Smash Bros. Brawl and played it every day. It was so much fun, and I have so many fond memories manning Kirby and competing against my brother. Most of the time he'd win, but to be fair, I was 8 and pretty bad at video games. But then in 2014, a brand spanking new game came out called Super Smash Bros. 4. It was like the old game, but it had a bunch of new characters, like my new main, Little Mac. He was an underdog boxer who was weaker and smaller than his opponents, but still won through hard work and dedication. We played that every day too, but now that I was older, I could actually put up a fight. I was roaming the halls of my school when I saw posters for a Super Smash Bros. 4 tournament. It was gonna be a 1v1, 3 stock, no items, 8-minute, single elimination matches on 2 Wii U spanning over the course of all the lunch breaks in 1 week, consisting of 30 competitors. The prize was a certificate, a free lunch, and a can of Coke. Although, I was more excited about just playing and showing off my skills, so I signed up immediately. Next Monday, I went to the computer lab where the tourney was being held, and I saw some familiar faces. But one that really stood out to me was one I was far too familiar with. My brother Jackson had also signed up! Dun dun dun! I watched him fight some random schmuck first, and he made a really gutsy move. You see, he always trains by fighting CPUs as random so he can learn and understand how every character works. And in his very first fight, he chose random! Everyone was in shock at his decision, and I knew whoever he was playing didn't stand a chance. The way the stage selection worked was one player got to choose their character first, and the other guy got to counterpick them, but the first player chose the arena from a list of tournament legal stages. When I played my first match, I chose Final Destination like any respectable Smash player would pick, and I brought a classic controller to use. While fighting, the joystick felt way too slow, and it really handicapped me. However, I was fortunate enough to be playing against someone who didn't really know what they were doing, and I won. The next day in math class, I was talking about strategies with a friend who also entered, and our teacher got mad at us for not focusing. But we told her how life and death that tournament was. Do I remember anything I learned in that math class all year? Of course not. But do I remember a video game tournament that lasted 1 week so affectionately that I could animate an entire cartoon about it? Yeah, probably. For those of you unfamiliar with Smash Bros. 4, the character I played, Little Mac, is pretty awesome. He's strong, fast, and durable. The only problem is he sucks in the air. If you get knocked off, recovering is really hard. But as I was spectating other players fight, I noticed a match being held on a stage called Coliseum, which is totally flat. It was then that I realized, holy shit. If I choose this stage instead of Final Destination, it'll give me a huge advantage. So for the rest of the week, we battled and battled our way up the ranks. Unfortunately, my friends who also entered didn't survive. Me and Jackson made it to the semifinals and were on opposite sides by a random chance. My brother fought against some other guy who was surprisingly good, and Jackson ended up winning with only 1 stock remaining. The guy I was fighting wasn't some run-of-the-mill loser who had never played before either. I could tell he was a nerd, and he had experience just like me. My opponent chose Samus, and he was kicking my ass. I decided to leave my classic controller at home and use my 3DS, which I was more used to instead. But the left trigger wasn't working and I was unable to shield. He kept unloading projectiles on me and I couldn't get him back. I was on my last stock with over 100 damage and I timed a counter wrong while he was charging up a blast. Everything played in slow motion as I saw my life flash before my eyes. But then, as if fate had other plans, one of the stage's pillars from below lifted me up out of the way at the last second. We both ended up on our last lives. I had 130 damage while he had 80, so we both knew that every millisecond from this point on mattered. He jumped off a pillar to attack me, but I unleashed a KO punch and boom! It was all over. I won the semi-final match by the skin of my teeth. That meant it was just down to 2. Everyone was so pumped with energy. This was the battle years had built up to. The unstoppable force versus the unmovable object. Dark versus light. Brother against brother. I picked Little Mac and he selected Toon Link. For the stage, I chose Coliseum. So we battled and battled. We kept swapping underdog status, he kept pushing me off the sides and I kept slamming him with smash attacks. We both ended up staring each other down with 0% damage and 1 stock left. We kept comboing one another again and again until I finally got 1 last smash attack in on him and won. The crowd burst into cheers and everyone was super excited. After all those years of losing to my brother, I finally defeated him in front of everyone. And I felt more joy than a 6-year-old on Christmas. When the cheering stopped, I said, well, see you guys Monday, and walked away, but I tripped on a cord and everyone had a good laugh together. I guess the moral of the story is, even if you're younger and weaker than your opponents, you can still succeed if you find a little trick or kink in the system you can viciously exploit. And yes, I still have that award to this day.